Hi, welcome to the Dairy Hour podcast, where rural charm meets personal growth. Join us as we milk every moment for wisdom, self-improvement, and mental wellness. I'm your host, Val Lavigne, a rural dairy farming mom with a passion for filling hearts while never forgetting to fill my own cup. Get ready for insightful conversations, empowering tips, and a splash of fun and laughs, of course. Let's cultivate growth, nourish our minds, and embrace the journey together. This is the Dairy Hour podcast, where every episode is a breath of fresh air and the inspiration you need to be your best self. Hey Dairy Hour listeners, this is Val Lavigne, and I'm thrilled to tell you about an event you won't want to miss. Mark your calendars for the Forward Together National Conference happening in Kansas City from November 5th to the 7th, 2024. This incredible conference hosted by the Dairy Girl Network is the perfect opportunity for dairy women, whether you're on the farm or in the industry, to come together, learn, and recharge. With over 25 dynamic speakers, engaging breakout sessions, and thought-provoking panel discussions, you will leave feeling energized, connected, and armed with new knowledge to succeed in your daily journey. Oh, and I'll be there. I can't wait to connect with all of you. From sustainability to leadership, there's something for everyone. Plus, if you can't make it to Kansas City, don't worry. You can join us virtually from anywhere with their interactive on-demand option. Join us for 3 days of networking, learning, and a whole lot of fun. Registration is now open, and it's time to book your travel for the best price. Head to dairygirlnetwork.com to learn more and register. Registration will close in early October. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour podcast. I am your host, Val Lavigne, and I am joined by a special guest today, Monica Massey. Monica, how are you today?
Good, Val. How are you? Hello from Kansas City.
Very good. Yes, Kansas City. I actually am going to be headed to Kansas City in November for the Dairy Girl Network conference, so I'm really excited about that. I've actually never been to Kansas City before, so this will be a first time for me.
Awesome. Well, fabulous city and fabulous group, the Dairy Girl Network. So look me up when you're here.
Yes, you'll have to come to the Dairy Girl conference. Come say hello.
Of course.
So Monica, do you want to give us a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure, Val. I am Monica Massey, as you said, and I am a motivational speaker and a consultant.
Awesome. So what kind of things do you consult on?
So right now I'm spending a lot of time and energy in the medical food space, or food as medicine space, some people call it, but it's medical food space, working with an Ivy League doctor out of Boston and a team across the country, bringing a supplement to the marketplace that helps people who suffer from depression. They have a nutritional deficiency that can't be met with diet alone, and so we're bringing the supplement like food medicine to market. So that's been really cool. Also help in communications and crisis, some guidance around strategy for various industries. And so having fun as a consultant, but really having fun as a public speaker in a space and a place that I didn't know that I would be, which is women's empowerment. So I can speak on a whole host of topics, on crisis, on innovation, on culture. But 9 times out of 10, when somebody's asking me to show up and take to the stage, it's for a women's empowerment topic, subject, or conference. So it's been really fun.
That's awesome. So you did not start out in this area, and I'm wondering if you didn't see yourself getting into this area as a kid. So do you want to talk a little bit about, where you were born and raised, and, what life was like as young Monica?
Yeah, sure. And you're absolutely right. I did not, if you asked young Monica where she would be in 20, 30 years, would not have predicted that I'd be a motivational speaker and consultant, and would really not have predicted that I would have spent near 3 decades, actually more than 3 decades, I'm aging myself here, in the dairy industry. But young Monica was raised in the Catskill Mountains, upstate New York, in a very small community called Margaretville. My parents were Long Islanders, and they decided when they had a young family that they wanted to go and raise them in what they deemed a safer place, right? So they drove until they ran out of gas or something, and we landed in Margaretville, New York. I had a very idyllic childhood there. where I'm not sure that I appreciated it as I was growing up. We were bored a lot, but we really weren't. We had just beautiful countryside. We skied, we could ride our bikes, we swam in the creeks. If a car slowed down, it wasn't to snatch you, right? It was to say, you better get home. Your mom's looking for you for dinner. Like everybody knew everybody. But I think what you're really asking me is kind of what influenced me in my childhood to kind of go where I went and do what I did. I was raised in a very traditional house, right? So we had the male roles and the female roles. My dad was the breadwinner. My mom's job was to raise the kids, clean the house, put dinner on the table. She wasn't allowed to work. So very kind of traditional, stereotypical roles that my parents had. I was one of 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Girls were supposed to grow up, get married, and have children. And that kind of played out again for me in high school. I remember distinctly sitting across from my guidance counselor, who was a female, and talking about what we wanted to do in the future. And I think this is a story you probably read on my website, Val, which is why you're kind of leading me here. And when I told her I wanted to be a photojournalist and travel the world, she was like, well, going to college is a waste of money. You're just going to get married and have children. And I kind of had this like, watch me now attitude, having been raised in a house where my mom didn't have choices. She of course had choices, but she wasn't allowed to work. And then kind of having that reiterated in school that like, you shouldn't go to college, it's a waste of money. It was like, watch me now. I knew I wanted to go out into a bigger world than what I had experienced in the Catskill Mountains. I knew I wanted more than what my mom was able to have. And I think in some ways my mom exposed my sister and I to doing and being more and or being anything we wanted to be. And so I think that childhood and kind of the lack of opportunity that I was being told about, but the underlying push to go do and be anything you wanted to be really resulted in me showing up at the State University of New York, College of Ag and Tech, where I earned a journalism degree and then kind of going on from there.
Which state university did you go to?
Morrisville.
Morrisville.
So student Morrisville is where I went. Had a fabulous journalism program. We called our professors by their first names, Charlie and Neil, and it was a great program and a great experience.
So you went on to do journalism at Morrisville, and then what did your parents think of that?
They gave me $20, dropped me off, and said good luck. I'm not sure that they really thought it was a good use of money, but I really had to go on my own. And so they didn't have the money to send me. They also, as I have already stated, didn't really believe in the girls going off to school. I waited tables 7 days a week, and I took out every loan I could possibly take. And I think I paid $25 a month for many years after school. I went on from SUNY Morrisville to Utica College of Syracuse University. It's now called something different. It's just Utica College. And so I did get a 4-year degree in public relations and journalism, but I kind of maxed out loans and waited tables almost 7 nights a week to be able to pay for that.
Okay. And then what happened next?
So as you know, the State University of New York College of Ag and Tech at Morrisville had a dairy program. I ended up getting an internship at what was then called Dairy Elite Cooperative, a milk marketing cooperative. I already told you I was kind of like on a shoestring budget and trying to pay my way through. So I really wanted to go work for a newspaper, but this milk marketing cooperative, whatever that was paying. So they were going to pay me some money for my gas to get there. And then I was going to get a small stipend plus obviously college credits. And so I showed up as a communications intern at Dairy Elite Cooperative, and my job as an intern that first year was to travel New York, Pennsylvania, some of Vermont, Massachusetts, doing quality milk stories on dairy farms. I was afraid of dogs. I was afraid of cows. I joke I'm afraid of farmers. I mean, I was a kind of a Long Island kid that grew up in the Catskills, which was a rural area, and it was a farming community, but I hadn't really been exposed to it. So I selfishly took the job because it paid. I fell in love with the people and the industry. I never really fell in love with the dogs that the farms in upstate New York seem to have multiples of. But I fell in love with the industry and the work, salt of the earth people, and I felt really good about what I was doing. That internship turned into a job, which turned into a 30-some-odd year career in agriculture.
Awesome. It's funny how you end up in the most random places and definitely never, ever probably in your life thought that that was the way things were going to go. And I agree with you on the dog things. Some dogs are great on the farm. And thankfully, when you go to certain farms enough, you learn which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones.
And you
Exactly.
always carry biscuits. And you're like, here, take this, leave me alone.
Yeah, bad parenting confession. After had children, I would take my son with me to the farms. Sometimes my son and daughter would, and I'd make them get out of the car first. Like, pet the dog, you see if it's okay. It's like, what are you doing? But they weren't afraid, and I had fear, and dogs can sense fear. Anyhow.
See if this dog's gonna attack us, child. It's fine.
Right, right, right.
I love it. That's great. So it turned into a job. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that job entailed and how things kind of went from there?
Yeah, sure. So as I stated, I started out in the communications department. I was an intern. That internship turned into, I believe, a second internship. And then at some point, I graduated school and I went working elsewhere. I worked for a not-for-profit, the American Lung Association, and I ended up working at a newspaper, which was kind of my ultimate goal when I went off to college. Somebody that I had interned for was out on maternity leave for a year, and Dairy Lee asked me to come back into a full-time temporary one-year position, and I jumped at the opportunity. Like I said, I mean, you're working for farm families, right? And the people who work for farm families are like your family. And so I jumped at the opportunity to go back. I ended up directing the communications department at Dairy Lee Cooperative. Dairy Lee became part of the National Cooperative Dairy Farmers of America. And so over like a 10-year period, there was growth. There was growth for me in my career. There was changes in the industry. By 2006, the CEO of Dairy Lee Cooperative, Rick Smith, became the CEO of Dairy Farmers of America. And he asked me to come here to Kansas City to join him in kind of building a stronger bench for Dairy Farmers of America. And I said, Kansas City? Yeah, no. And we talked for a while, and he convinced me people live here and it's a great place to be and there's great opportunity and he needs me here. And so I came. And so I spent the majority of my career working for Rick Smith, who was really somebody who was very focused on the farm family and doing the right things for farmers. And it was not just a noble cause, it was a fabulous cause. And so when I came to Kansas City in 2006, I remember Rick asking me, like, you know, what keeps me up at night? Because Dairy Farmers of America was a relatively new cooperative. Only Land O'Lakes is national in footprint, but really the only national dairy cooperative that existed, combination of multiple cooperatives coming together. Very different than kind of the experience that I had at Dairy Lee Cooperative. And I said, like, we're a farmer-owned cooperative and there's nobody with a title of membership. There's nobody here focused on what the farm families are doing. And so we did a lot of things in the early days, but one of the things that Rick was squarely focused on is bringing value to the farmer owners of Dairy Farmers of America. So I kind of grew out of communications, always had responsibility for managing it, but ended up, by the time I left 2 years ago, responsible for everything from innovation, communication, crisis, strategy, did a whole lot of things with the consumer side of the business. I was chief of staff and just kind of industry relations, anything that needed to be done. I really kind of grew into a C-suite position that had a whole lot of responsibility, and I had my fingers in a whole lot of things, which was really exciting.
Good. And what did your family think when you were like, hey, we're going to Kansas City?
What happens when a tornado comes, right? Like, I think my kids had seen The Wizard of Oz and they were just afraid of tornadoes. They were in 2nd and 7th grade at the time. And so they kind of just went where mom said we were going. We've had a great life here. It's a really easy town to live in and be in, but also I've brought my kids along on the farm visits that I used to do, on the meetings and the events and the travel that I did. My son, when he graduated from college, he was going cross country with one of his buddies. And I said, if you break down anywhere, you call me because I'll figure out where the closest farm is and I'll be calling them because they'll be able to come out. They'll feed you, they'll fix your vehicle, they'll take care of you. And so I feel like I have this huge family, this network of people around the country that I can just call on because for 30 years I worked with them, or their parents or grandparents. I've gone to the weddings and the funerals and special events for farm families around this country for 30 some odd years, and it's been great.
Good. I love it. So what, obviously you said 2 years ago now you left that career that you'd had for so long. So what kind of things led up to that career change?
Yeah, so I think you know the cows go 7 days a week. I know you know that because you have a whole plethora of cows. And so I worked kind of 24/7. And people talk about work-life balance. I didn't have work-life balance. I just had this life that I was living. And sometimes I would leave work at 3 o'clock to go to a soccer game for one of my children. And oftentimes, or more times than not, a call would come in during dinner that I would have to take, or at 4:30 in the morning, there's a dryer fire somewhere and my phone is ringing. And so a lot of hours, right? 24/7, I am plugged in because the cows don't recognize nights, weekends, vacations, any of those things. And I was great. I was good with that. I loved what I did. We were getting into kind of COVID hit, right? So you're an essential business, keeping the trucks on the road and the product going to the grocery stores, keeping the employees safe. And DFA had 20,000 employees by the time I left. Our largest customer, Dean Foods, had gone bankrupt, and DFA wanted to keep, farms need a place for that milk to go, wanted to keep Dean Foods alive. So we acquired Dean Foods, just a whole lot of things going on. We then had CEO succession or CEO transition. So Rick Smith, the guy that I had worked with from the time I was an 18-year-old intern, was retiring. And I kind of just assessed where I'm at. And I said, I'm going to give it a little time and see if there's still a place and space for me here, and see if I'm still excited about what I'm doing every day. I've been doing it for so long. I also saw it as an opportunity in that transition with the new CEO coming on board, that if I'm going to leave and want to do something else, now is the right time to do it. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things at the end of my career that I spent a lot of time doing was coaching people and guiding people and being kind of the Lorax of the trees for the employees there. And I knew that if I stepped out on my own, I could do that on a bigger and broader platform. And so I decided to do that. The kids were out of college, they were on their own. The responsibility as a parent felt like it was getting lesser. And so I said, be brave and just go hang your own shingle and see what you can do as a consultant and as, I guess now, a women's empowerment speaker. And I'm glad I did it.
Awesome. So how did you make that transition as far as, when you stepped away from DFA, how did you go about convincing people that you were the right person to go with? How did you establish that being a consultant and getting yourself out there?
Yeah. So, over 30 years, I had established really deep relationships with a lot of people. And it's funny, people pay attention. People like you have a reputation, right? I had a reputation for getting things done. And I was proud of the fact that over the years, people would call me and say, farmers, people in the industry, what have you, they'd call and say, Monica, can you get this done? And they knew that maybe I wasn't the person that would actually do the task, whatever it was, but I would make sure it got done. So I had a reputation for being able to kind of plow through volumes of work, exercise good judgment, and get things done. And so that, I think, has served me post my career at Dairy Farmers of America. After I left, I had job offers come in immediately. I've already mentioned to you, 24/7 is what I felt like I worked. So what I did do was say no to everything. And I gave myself kind of a sabbatical, 6 months to just decompress, to read the books that I wanted to read, as opposed to all the things that I had to read, to reconnect with friends and family, to sit on a beach, to play some golf, to just like chill. So I did this intentional pause for about 6 months, knowing full well that when I came out of that pause, I wanted to consult with people, didn't want to coach, but I am coaching some folks and doing the public speaking. And so I kind of took time to just decompress and start that business, put a business plan together, start reaching out to people, letting people know that I am available. My very first speaking gig was to the Dairy Club. And so the relationships that I have made over the past 30 some odd years are coming back and rewarding me now with consulting gigs, with connections, with speaking gigs, those types of things.
As a busy mom and dairy farmer, I'm always looking for ways to support my family's health as well as my own, and I absolutely love Wonder Cow Colostrum. It's packed with essential nutrients, great for supporting gut health, boosts immunity, and promotes overall wellness. Whether it's for me, my kids, or anyone looking to stay strong and healthy, Wonder Cow is my go-to daily supplement. I have been taking it for a year now, and it is irreplaceable in my daily routine. If you want to experience the amazing benefits of colostrum too, you can use my special code, DairyGalVal, at checkout for a discount. Give Wonder Cow a try and you will definitely feel the difference.
People
Awesome.
pay attention, right? People pay attention.
They do. They definitely pay attention, and names are memorable, even if I'm terrible at names, like when I meet you on the street kind of thing. But definitely, when you keep hearing names over and over again, it definitely sticks in your head and has that memorable quality to it. So I completely understand that. And, so you basically took a break after a 30-year long career, basically tucked your head in and said, I'm saying no to everything. And that's really awesome. How did you, keep that confidence level that you were able to say no and still be confident that like everything's going to be okay? Like, I don't have to take the first thing that comes at me. I want to go in this direction. How does it work to be able to have that confidence to say no, something better is coming my way?
Yeah, I think you're either wired to be gutsy and have grit, or you're wired to be more contemplative and a little bit more concerned about, will something more come my way? I've always kind of been gutsy. Like, I talked about the watch me now attitude. I'm the third of four kids. I guess gutsy and scrappy is kind of innate in me. Things have always worked out. And I feel like if you want something bad enough, you work hard enough to get it, right? So people who approach their business or their goals or whatever it is they're focused on casually become a casualty. And so I've always been confident in my ability to make things happen because I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and put the work in. And again, I have a 30-year career where I think I've established that I'm hardworking, I'm smart, I'm savvy, I'll get it done. And I feel like I can trust that too. So I guess guts and grits and maybe some stupidity, I don't know, but I just knew it would work out, and it has. And I'm also, because I don't want to get back into 80-hour weeks, I do want to enjoy life. I do want to be able to go and help my daughter move into her new home and just be there for the family, because there was a lot, as you know, as a working mother, there was a lot of kind of, you're either neglecting home so work is getting done, or you're neglecting work because you've got something going on at home. And so I don't want to have to feel that push and pull anymore. So I'm being really selective about where I'm going to spend my time.
Yeah, I love the way that you said that, because it's definitely, they say work-life balance, but it's not really a balance. You're definitely always, I almost think of it as more of a teeter-totter. Like if you're putting more into one, the other one is going to be lacking. If you're putting too much into the other one, then the other one's going to be lacking. So it's kind of like a give and take rather than that stagnant balance that people talk so much about. And I definitely can see how after, it being tipped one way for so long that finally you were just like, okay, I've had enough of that being tipped. I want to get it back into whack. And I want to be able to, basically get back to that point where it can teeter totter. And, some days obviously things are more work focused, but then as long as and have that, that mental capability to say, okay, now my family needs to come first. This is something important, and let that scale, almost even just letting the scale tip, not forcing it to stay one way. So I like the way that you said, it's been a priority for so long that something needed to give. And that's really great. What other tips do you have for people if someone is trying to work on that, saying no, setting boundaries, that kind of thing? What kind of advice do you give to people?
Yeah, sure. I look back over my career, Val, and I entered into a career in a time, in a day and age when women were told you can have anything, right? So despite me being told you shouldn't go to college, it's a waste of money, there was, outside of my little community and bubble, there were women entering the workforce because there were women before them that had paved the way. So I entered the workforce at a time when women can do and be anything, but it also meant we had to do it all. And so I remember one of the best days of my life was when children's Tylenol went from a 4-hour efficacy dose to 6 hours. That meant I could give my teething child on the way to daycare his Tylenol and get through lunch before I got called to come pick him up. Because when I entered into the workforce, our computers didn't come home with us. They were these big monstrosities on our desk, and we didn't have cell phones, or when we did, it was, I had a cell phone that zipped in a bag and it stayed in your car. And so you had to be in the office to do the work. Now, because I was in communications, I could bring, paper home and edit things and proof things and those types of things. But so women could have it all, but we also did it all. And it was exhausting. It really was exhausting. And I think I'm changing my views because I'm being exposed to changing views in this place. Absolutely, the balance thing, the seesaw that you talk about still exists, but I'm working in consultancy in a couple of industries that are really working hard to attract and retain women. Now, women are in these industries, but they don't necessarily get to the highest levels at the same numbers that the men do. And so these industries are really looking at why is that? And what they're finding is we have to evolve again. Yes, there's diversity, and we talk about equitable pay for women and titles and all of that. But when school ends at 3 o'clock and you're a working woman and you have to stay until 5 o'clock, doesn't really work, right? Mm-hmm. And so young women today are expecting more from their employers. I want you to understand that I'll get this work done for you, but it doesn't have to be within the normal traditional work hours. I didn't buck the system. I just showed up and I worked the same hours as the guys, and I didn't ask for time off. And if there was a sick kid, I hid that from my employers. And so we're evolving our thinking in terms of the practices and policies that are in place. I think post-COVID, in this world that we figured out how we can communicate like you and I are today and attend meetings from our home offices or even our kitchens, is changing things for the better in terms of women in the workplace. So the yes versus the no. I always said yes. I think you've heard me say, guy named Warren Buffett is quoted as having said that the secret to his success has been to say no to largely everyone and everything. The secret to Monica Massey's success in her career has been to say yes to everyone and everything. The CEO needs somebody somewhere, I'll do it. You need me to get on a plane and go to this meeting, I'll do it. You need somebody to take on this project, I'll do it. And I felt like I had to do it to be able to have the success that I did. And I think now women are more thoughtful and employers are more thoughtful about what should that really look like. Women's contributions in the workplace shouldn't have to mirror these kind of archaic policies and procedures. At DFA, we didn't even have a maternity leave when I came on board in 2006. You went on disability if you had a baby, right? So we've evolved that. DFA evolved that in its organization, looking at paternity leaves. I mean, just different things that we should be reviewing today to say, gosh, it doesn't have to be yes when it actually doesn't benefit the employer. That employer should be able to say no, or it needs to look a little bit differently for me. Lot there that I just spewed on you, but I think, it's good. It's a reflection point in the industry.
Definitely. And I think knowing when that tide needs to turn, I think that's important. And I definitely think that that's something that's, the next step in, women, is that these things are starting to change and expectations are becoming higher, I've talked about this a few times in my podcast before. I love reading 1800s novels from like London. Yeah. And every once in a while you get one where she dresses like a boy because she wanted to go do something. And, it's just funny because it's just another chapter in the evolution of women where, used to be if you wanted to compete with the boys, you had to say yes to everything. If you had to, drop what you were doing, basically keep work number one on the list no matter what, and always be prepared to go. And I think that that is definitely a turning tide at this point. And, maybe it's one of the few good things that came out of COVID. I don't know, but also getting that technology, the help from technology really has made a difference in being able to juggle and, keep those scales moving, with the work life teeter-totter, I guess we can call it. So there's just so many different things, but I am definitely seeing just out there's so much more on women setting boundaries and saying no to different things when it doesn't suit what their end goal is or what, they want their home life to look like alongside of their work life, because definitely keeping those boundaries is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was proudly one of the boys. I would say I was one of the boys. Now, covertly, I was doing a whole lot to sponsor women in the workplace, right? Like making sure they had the titles and the pay and the opportunities. And I can remember conversations about, well, she has kids, so we probably shouldn't ask her to go do that. It's like, let her decide. But I didn't need to be one of the boys, or maybe I did then. Today, my daughter doesn't need to be one of the boys. She could be a woman in the workplace. And I think you're absolutely right that technology and the evolution of policies and just awareness around this allow us to. I'm going to share with you a funny story, not funny, kind of an eye-opening story for me. So, senior executive, a bold woman with great success in the industry. My daughter comes to me a few years ago. She had gotten a job offer, her first job out of college, and she's looking at the letter in which they're saying, we're willing to pay you this. And she said, how do I go back and tell them I want to get paid X more, obviously? And I said, well, I think what you do, Kennedy, is you say, you write back and you say, thank you so much. I'm excited at the opportunity. I'd like you to consider. And I didn't even get the rest of the sentence down. She said, I don't want them to consider. I want them to pay me what I'm worth. And I'm thinking, goodness, here I am. I'm an executive sponsor of diversity, equity, and inclusion at a $20 billion global business. And I'm still using language that's archaic and asking permission to be worthy, to be valued at what I think I should be valued at. And my 25-year-old is schooling me on how I really should be doing it. So it's great to see. And maybe I've done something right with my daughter. I don't know.
I think you did something right. That's awesome. And that's great that she had the confidence to go back and say, no, this is, I would love to do this, but this is where I'm at. So
exactly.
Meet me there or be square, I guess you could say.
Right. They weren't square. They met her there. So it worked.
Perfect. See, and that's how you get what you want.
That's right.
Excellent. Do you have any other fun tidbits or little tips and tricks that you want to share with us today?
Oh gosh, where do I start? Of course, right? Of course. I just mentioned one, which was I talked about sponsoring women. And I think when we talk about yes and no, and we talk about, I told the story of, I'm not going to ask her because she has children, let her make up her mind on whether or not she can get on a plane and go do that. But I think, it's talk in the women's empowerment stage that I take to about things that you can do. Look in the mirror, like assess your gaps. Like there's no substitute for hard work, right? So while we want maybe policies and procedures and practices to change to meet us where we are today as women, there's no substitute for hard work. So look in the mirror. Where do you, assess your gaps? Where do you need to school yourself? Where do you need to show up differently and better? Where do you need to advocate, have the hard conversations, all that good stuff. But also women supporting women. And so while I was proudly one of the boys, I had a seat at the table, the coveted table, right? The power table. I had the ear of the CEO. I was Rick Smith's of staff. And so I had an audience with him every day, multiple times a day. And he was a fabulous guy in terms of investing in and wanting to advance women. And he made it really easy for me to do it. I miss him every day. I could do that for women. Like, so if you and I worked together, which we did, but not in this scenario, and you had a great idea, I would say, Val, that's great. Put that in an email and send it to me. And then I would forward your email as the kind of author and originator of that idea onto Rick and say, I think this is a great idea for the organization. We should do this. I wanted you to have visibility. I wanted you to be, the worth of you as an employee to be seen by the CEO, by the chairman. And so where you can promote and support and guide and help and advocate for other women, do it. And for men too, right? So not everybody's at the senior levels, not everybody's at the coveted table. So where can you help your colleagues and people who are deserving of your help? Because people helped me along the way. When I was at SUNY Morrisville and I got that first internship, there was a strong woman that I had that guided me and mentored me and was disgusted by what I wore to my first job interview, but I had no idea what to wear. So pay it forward.
Now I want to know what you wore.
I thought it was appropriate. I mean, I was in college. I was walking around with like Cherry Garcia shirts on because the Grateful Dead, we all thought we were cool when we were born in '69, that we wore, Woodstock-like clothing. I wore a button-down yellow shirt from the Gap tucked into blue Dockers or, I don't know, Gap khakis or whatever they are with like penny loafers. I thought it was like appropriate. It was clean. It was ironed. She was mortified. She's like, no, you wear a suit to a job interview. So I've since upped my game in that area, but I didn't know. Again, I didn't have a whole lot of guidance at home.
And clearly you made a good impression. So you did all right.
I guess so. Or I was the only candidate. I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you, but that's wonderful. I love it. So I love to transition at this point into just some fun rapid fire questions just to get to know you a little bit better and, have some fun. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night all the way. If I started my job at 11, I'd probably be there at 11:05 in the morning. Please, not the morning. I'm a night owl all the way.
I love it. I always say I'm like not, I can do either or, but I'm gonna need my sleep persons. Oh,
As
and
long as
that,
you get sleep, it doesn't matter, right?
yes, as long as I get that structured sleep, it doesn't really matter. I can start early. Usually I'm whooped by the time night rolls around, but yeah, depends on the day and depends on what's going on, I guess. Are you a sweet person or a savory person?
Savory.
What's your go-to like, what's your go-to meal? If you had to pick like a favorite dish, what are you going for?
Oh my gosh, pizza, 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 top it with ice cream. I don't care, pizza. Actually, you'll love this being a dairy farmer. I either put blue cheese on my pizza or I put cottage cheese on my pizza. But if you could put more dairy on my dairy laden pizza, that's my go-to.
Cottage cheese on pizza. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, cottage cheese is also life. Pizza's life, cottage cheese is life.
I
Also
like
put,
cottage cheese, but I'm
yeah,
not.
okay. Do you put it in your scrambled eggs?
No, I'm a weird egg person, so I get
Okay.
weird. I'm scared to try it because I love cottage cheese like standalone or with fruit or something like that. But I'm very funny about eggs. Like I went for a long time and wouldn't eat eggs. And I don't particularly care to cook them myself if I'm gonna eat them. It's just one of those odd things.
I
Like it just
understand.
so I'm worried about trying the cottage cheese and eggs thing because if the texture is weird to me, I'm scared that I won't eat eggs for a while again. So I'm just
So
like,
for everyone but you, Val, everyone listening, not Val, put cottage cheese in your eggs. It looks weird, but when you cook it and it's cooked up, you don't see cottage cheese in your eggs. It fluffs them up like crazy. It's so good.
okay, I mean, maybe I will have to get some cottage cheese and try it and see how it goes.
Have somebody
So
else cook the eggs for you.
yes, I will make my husband cook it. That's fine. That works for me. He's normally the one that I make cook my eggs anyways. So does a good job. He knows to kill them. I cannot have any runny yolks. I'm yeah, very weird about.
I'm all the way overcook my eggs. I'm good with
Yes,
that too.
if I go somewhere and I order an egg, I'm like, please kill it. Just make sure it's dead. Steak, medium rare, that's fine, but kill the eggs. Yes. If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be?
I think I want to meet Mother Teresa.
There you go. That's a good
My
one.
second would be Ernest Hemingway. And I feel like I shouldn't say that because he has not a great reputation, especially with women. But he was always somebody that I just loved his writings as I was young and wanted to go off to college for journalism and such. But Mother Teresa, it would be fascinating. And I'm a talker, I'm an extrovert. I would probably be very quiet. I would want to hear Mother Teresa and listen to her and just that would be fabulous. We'd have pizza.
Take in all of the wisdom. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, if you met Ernest Hemingway, you could just teach him a thing or two.
I probably
Be
would
like,
just have like a lot of alcohol. We'd drink a lot, we'd debate. I'd get into a fight with him over his like chauvinistic ways, but I would also be just enthralled with, be like a celebrity sighting that I've always wanted.
I mean, that works. That works. So being in Kansas City, what's your favorite sport?
Oh, you can't live here and not have football be your favorite sport. In fact, we are so good at football right now, people don't like our team anymore, right? So people used to love the Chiefs and root for the Chiefs, but now we've won enough Super Bowls that they're like, all right, enough with the Chiefs. So truth be told, my father didn't watch football, so I didn't grow up with football on in the house. We were a baseball family and boxing, like the Muhammad Ali days.
Mhm.
So when I moved to Kansas City, we would sponsor and have folks come to Arrowhead to some of the football games. And I was playing host one day in the suite at halftime. Like I had gotten there at 9 a.m. for a 12 p.m. game because you like do brunch and you're greeting people. And at halftime, I thanked everybody for coming. And they were like, what? It's only halftime. Do we have to go? I'm like, it's only halftime. I've been here forever. Like, this is the longest sport. That was
I don't know.
2006, 7, 8, So now I'm like, I love the Chiefs. The whole town just is on, it's just electric here when the Chiefs are playing. It's a really fun time to be in Kansas City. The Chiefs would be the team in the sport.
And I mean, you guys have Taylor Swift on your side, so I guess you're good, right?
I miss the whole Taylor Swift like era craziness. My daughter was just kind of in between, like not too young and not old enough, I guess. So when she started showing up at the games and we kept seeing her, I'm like, Taylor Swift. I don't want to see her. I want to see football. But Taylor Swift is an amazing businesswoman, right? Like she
Hmm.
gets it right. I don't know if you know, she re-recorded because she didn't have rights to her music. So
Yep.
she re-recorded all of her, I mean, she's just a brilliant businesswoman. She's a great role model. I'm not reading anything, tawdry in the headlines about her.
Yep.
So go Taylor and go Chiefs.
I love it. Team Taylor, Team Chiefs, bring it on. Let's do this.
Team
I love it.
barbecue also.
So honestly, I mean, I caught the very beginning of the Taylor Swift thing, kind of got lost along the way. And now my daughters are actually, they love Taylor Swift. So we listen to Taylor Swift again. And they think it's funny that I know like all the old songs that are older than them, but they're like, they're their favorite songs. And about when they started listening and I knew the words to the songs, they just kind of look at me like, wait. And I was like, yeah, we've been there, listened to her since before you were born. Like, don't go there. And then they kind
Cool, pretty
of like,
cool.
yeah, they look at you like, but you're old. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the same age as Taylor Swift. So take that.
Right. It's like a cool mom moment. It has to be, even though they were like, what? I'm not
Yes.
sure I understand what's
Yep.
happening.
I love it. It's fun. I've
And
enjoyed
how
the
old are
full
they?
circle. What's that?
And how old are they?
They will be 9 in September.
Okay, so how cool is it that like you had a Taylor Swift era and they're having it and you can go together? Like I know people who are going with their daughters 9, 10, 11, 12,
Yep.
and mother's enjoying it as much as the daughter, you know? That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm loving the full circle moment of when I was a kid and we'd be walking through the grocery store and my mom would be like jamming out to a song on the radio in the grocery store. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, mom, you're embarrassing me.
Yeah,
It's me. I'm the embarrassing mom. And I think this is like the coolest thing ever. Full
that's
circle
great.
moment. Yep.
I think you're cool too for it. So it doesn't matter if your twins think it.
The heck with them. As long as I'm having fun, they'll be all right. They'll
That's
learn
right.
someday.
I'm a terrible singer, but that doesn't stop me from belting music out.
Agreed. I mean, some days they sound just like Taylor Swift. I don't know. In my
I'm
head,
sure.
I do.
Right, right.
Oh gosh. What is if you could live anywheres, where would you live? Like if you couldn't live in Kansas City anymore and you got to move anywheres in the world.
It was many years ago, somebody that I worked with said, America has such diversity. I mean, we've got California alone, the mountains, the beaches, the Purple Mountains majesty. There's so many really cool places and cities, and I travel a ton and I love experiencing them. But I cannot believe I'm going to say this because for many years, my father was, again, male chauvinistic, stereotypical in some ways, which is not fair to say stereotypical, Italian. And so I was anti like Italian men and anti Italy. And I associated Italian men with like suppressing women.
Mhm.
Italy is where I would live. Italy is where I would live. I absolutely love Italy. It was later in my adulthood that I discovered Italy and I trek back there often. The food, the wine, the people, the ocean, the lemon groves. I mean, I just love Italy. And so you see these things like, buy a house for $1 in Italy. My grandfather came over to America from Italy, from like the Bari region when he was 15. Well, we don't know. Maybe he was 14. Maybe he lied about his age so he could work on the Long Island Railroad. And so I have roots there, and it's like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great to buy that house and redo? It's very romanticizing, like what would be toiling around in an old house. So I would say Italy. That said, America is fabulous. There is no better country than America. I love living here. I love the opportunity. I love the diversity of people and of geography and all of that good stuff. So I don't think I'd go live in Italy. That's just like if I could live anywhere, sure, I'd say Italy.
I get it. You're good. You don't have to
Yep.
explain it to me. Well,
That's pretty great.
we got into slash artist. So what's your go-to like band or artist to listen to?
Well, give me some old school rap, please. Like, I love my old school rap. It's what I work out to. But I have diversity and taste in music. And I go through like periods where like I'm in a Nora Jones phase, or I'm like I've started listening to G Love. You want to go back in some time? G Love and Special Sauce. Like I'm listening to some of that. My children have exposed me to great music. And so I'll listen to some of their music. Chris Stapleton is sometimes on my radio. So I don't have a go-to. It depends on my mood. If I'm like being creative and I want to think, I might put some more mellow music on. If I'm like working out, give me some iced tea. I don't know, Snoop Dogg. Like seeing Snoop, we ban athletes for having marijuana in their system, but Snoop is going to be I love seeing Snoop at the
Oh my
Olympics.
gosh, me too.
The irony of that was just amazing. I don't
It
have a
is
go-to,
amazing.
Val. Yeah, I don't have a go-to. I just like all kinds of music.
Snoop was what America needed at the Olympics. Can we just throw that out there? I
I
loved
think
every
so.
second about it. And there was just the one that stuck in my head. Like everyone's talking about the dressage one with Snoop and Martha, but can we just talk about the commercial where Snoop and Martha went to a restaurant and she was feeding him fancy foods and he was like,
Oh,
"What?"
is
And
that
then he
one?
was like, "That is disgusting." It was,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, he's so fun. And then there was Snoop watching Raygun, the breaker
mhm.
from was it Australia, and his expressions. But I think it's safe to say it's not hard being Snoop D-O-double-G, right?
No.
So yeah, that was his time. It was fun.
And then they also caught me off guard because they're like, he's like America's grandfather here at the Olympics. And I was like, what? And come to find out, he's like a grandfather. Can you imagine Snoop being your grandfather?
I mean, I'm not sure life could get better than that,
That would
honestly.
be pretty amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's the irony and just going with it, the irony of life and just going with it. That's what that's an example of, right?
Yes. And I shared something that it was like, if you had to like give up stuff and just do something, he was like, oh, I'd open an ice cream parlor and it'd be Scoop Dog.
Yes.
And I was like, that I can get behind. Ice
I
cream,
didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. I love that.
Scoop Dog. Yep. I'm here for that. I love it.
Since we're on the Olympics, can we just shout out to El St. Pierre, right?
Yes.
Vermont native running in the Olympics, wife
Yes.
of a dairy farmer. She's a dairy farmer too.
She is.
Fabulous.
Yes, she was actually episode 10 of the Dairy Hour podcast. I got to interview her right after it was, I think Ivan was 3 or 4 months old, maybe. But she is fantastic. And I had my girls rooting for her during the Olympics, and we really get into it. And she is fantastic. She is just an absolute wonderful example, role model. And she certainly rallies the dairy farmers, and we're all here for it. So
Agree. Yep,
love it.
agree.
And I think a couple years ago, I actually was at her farm. So with my
Yep.
husband, we had to deliver something there with the big truck, and I took the ride up because she is like way up in Vermont, like throw a rock and hit Canada, way up there. So I'd actually went with him up there, and it was an impressive, beautiful farm. So
It is very involved in the industry and does a lot for dairy.
yes, definitely. So I also really love to ask more of a deeper thought question that was left from a previous guest. This is one of those fun things that I have evolved over time. So your question is going to be, let me look. I like to find the question based upon our conversation. We've
Okay,
already
great.
answered one of them. So what does success look like to you?
Good question. What does success look like to you? Honestly, I think that the definition of success has evolved with my evolving career and my age, I guess. And so early on, we've talked a little bit about how I started and became a businesswoman. Early on, success looked like getting that job, right? And showing up and having a title and promotions and all of that great stuff. When I had children and I was a mother, success looked a little bit differently. It was providing for my kids. It was showing them and giving them a childhood different than what I had. I wanted them exposed to more of the world. I wanted obviously to be able to afford their soccer cleats and their school trips and make sure they had the clothes that they needed and the food, but also great vacations and going off to college and being able to have opportunities that I didn't have. As they kind of have gone out on their own and they're self-sufficient, that's when I started looking in the mirror saying, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm almost showing up on muscle memory and I can do this for the rest of my career. And I love the industry and I love the people, but is there a higher calling? Is there something more? And so success for me today looks like giving back. And it is really rewarding to spend time with somebody in need of some coaching. Helped a woman get a job recently. She was really struggling with, if I want to throw my hat in the ring for this, but I'm not sure I'm ready. She got that job, and I can, in 10 and 20 years, she's going to be telling a story about this woman named Monica who helped her early in her career. Getting on stage, when I talk about, how to achieve success and how to advocate for yourself and others. When I get off of the stage and there are messages in my inbox on LinkedIn and there are 5 or 6 or 10 people lined up to talk to me or over a coffee break, they're like, this really resonated with me. That's super rewarding. Very different 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's not what success looked like for me. I'm actually a volunteer for 2 different groups here in Kansas City. One's called Awesome Ambitions And it is a program that helps young Black and brown girls in high school prepare for future success, be it college prep or job prep. And that's been really rewarding. I started that over COVID. And more recently, I signed up for the Women's Employment Network to help women get tools that they need to get jobs, because women who are socioeconomically disadvantaged just cannot get ahead. And so how do we get them those jobs that are sustainable jobs and they have a sustainable income? That's very different than where my head was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the end of my life, looking back over my career and the contributions that I made early on, really kind of self-serving, but also for farm families. I knew every day that I came to work, if I did a good job today, I help your farm family. If I do a bad job, I'm harming farm families perhaps. So success has changed, but I think maybe the common thread and theme is giving back, right? So although I was taking some early on, I was still giving back. So I think it's just evolved for me. And today I'm really excited to be able to contribute to others.
Awesome. That's a really great evolution in how you view that word and, how it has changed for you over time, because I think a lot of people just have like a one singular definition in their head. So, giving the example of how it changed over time is really great and helps people open up that like opportunity for it to change, because that's the other thing, success is always a moving target, and it's important to let it not only move upward, but also to the right or to the left, not politically speaking, but it might veer onto a different path, and that quote unquote end goal or that moving goalpost definitely changes and should change over your lifetime, because your priorities change, your everything changes. So I really love the way that you shared the examples of it changing throughout.
Thank you.
Of course. And you have a quote for us today.
I do. And I told you, I think early on, I was struggling with two different quotes, but I really think that the quote that I would say that I have spoken out loud more times than not is "you only live once." And that maybe goes back to kind of the gutsy, gritty, scrappy Monica. You only live once. So go do that thing, right? Go write that book. Go for that job, for that woman who was like, I'm not sure I want to go for that job, because you'll have regret if you don't, right? You only live once. Go do that trip with the kids this weekend. Go spend time with a loved one. Call a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. But go do that thing that's been on your list. In fact, when I present, I leave cards in the middle of the tables during my presentations, and it's a just do card, and it's 1, 2, and 3, numbered 1, 2, and 3. And I encourage people to write just 3 things down that they want to implement immediately in their personal or professional life after they leave the presentation that I'm giving. Because why are you not doing it, right? You only live once.
I love it. And that's so simple yet so overlooked. And so, it's understated, I would say. Like, everyone's heard it before, but to truly live by it is a whole nother level. So great. Monica, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. Do you want to share where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website. It's monicainc.com. So MONICAINC.com, and you can reach me there. LinkedIn, I'm really active. I've got a lot of people daily emailing me, coming into my message box on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, although that's a world that's a little scary to me. Some of the messages I get there, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be on Instagram. And that's also Monica Inc. And so lots of ways to reach me. I'm also represented by the speaker agency here in Kansas City. And so people looking to hire me on as a speaker, reach me directly or go through the Speakers Bureau. But I'm always responsive. I love hearing from people, guidance, just kibitzing, coffee, virtual coffee, what have you, multiple ways to reach me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Monica. You have just been an absolute world of inspiration to women everywhere, and that is wonderful and great. And I hope that, with listening to this podcast, we can help improve women, especially, women in rural areas, help improve their life and give them the power to make the changes that they need to be their best self. And I think that's wonderful. If you, the listener, loved this podcast, please be sure to share it with a friend, leave us a review. Be sure to tag me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things. If you do share it, we would be very appreciative. Thank you all, and we will talk to you next week.